say we're good? Staff ready? All right. Good evening. Let me call to order the special town council meeting for Tuesday, February 11th. It's good to see everybody there. We are at our official time and official place. Item number 2 is public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment, please come forward, give your name and address, and 2.5 minutes are allotted by ordinance. Anyone for public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Tony Conley. I live at 1415 Hamlin Park Circle. I'm actually somebody you may be discussing a little later when you're talking about the Historic District Preservation Committee. And I talked to a number of you, but not everybody, so I just wanted to stand up here for a moment so you can put a face with the name. And I wanted to take a moment to thank you. Over the last few months, I've been coming to a number of meetings, and I have really learned to appreciate how hard you guys work, and everybody works to do the best to get the best results for this good town of Mount Pleasant. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment before we close? All right. Item number 3 is executive session. If there is a motion, it would be for personnel for consideration for applications to serve on the Historic District Preservation Commission.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Legal and contractual would be discussion regarding contractual and proprietary matters related to the Harbor Entrepreneur Center. We have a motion, and it's for both?
For both, yes.
For both, and the second is for both. Is there any discussion before we vote? After executive session, council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. All in favor of entering executive session for the reasons stated in the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will go to the conference room. Yeah.
I got a couple of them.
plays at Western Carolina. She plays soccer. If you order a jersey with her name,
I saw that. You can order yours from your name.
yeah, you get NIA money or whatever, or NIL. What's it? NIL?
Oh.
Yeah, a coffee mug. You know, coffee. Travis Scott. Not Travis. Is what am I thinking? What am I thinking? You know, metal ones. No, metal ones. Yeah, one. Yeah, I don't like the Yeti product. $55.
Shoot, hey, you ought to get us. Well, we're one.
You guys all want to like fun with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you know she would be tickled to death if you took a picture of us with all the jerseys.
Oh, we're still going.
Yes.
We got a blanket.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, I think we'll go ahead. We only have one. Yeah, Madam Clerk, if you will. All right, we are reconvened from executive session of our special council meeting. No votes were cast and no action was taken. Do we have a motion to follow, please?
Yes, sir. For the Historic District Preservation Commission, I would like to recommend Mr. Foxworth and Mr. Kraft.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to the two. Item 5 is to adjourn. There being no further business, we will adjourn the special meeting. We will reconvene, or we will convene, not reconvene, we will convene for our regular council meeting at 6 p.m.
Can you give that to Christine?
All right, council, are you all ready? Staff, are you all ready? All right. Good evening. Let me call to order the town council meeting of Mount Pleasant for this Tuesday, February the 11th. Good to see everybody here. Hope you enjoyed the snow. I don't think we've seen everybody except for committee day. And I want to commend everybody for the way they handled that. Everybody at the town did an excellent job. Before we begin tonight, I will ask everybody to rise for a moment of silence. Councilman Chapman's son, Greg, passed away last week. And so this will be ended when Chaplain Dewey begins the prayer for us, followed by the pledge by Mayor Pro Tem Whitney. So let's have a moment of silence, please.
Lord, we lift up Councilman Howard and just ask you to let him know and the family know that you're with them during this time of loss, and that you are God that cares for each one of us. And be with him, we pray. We ask you to bless this meeting tonight, and we thank you for everybody that volunteers, that is elected or that volunteers in this town or who works in this town to make us safe and make us even a better town. And we just give you this time, and it's in your holy blessed name that we pray. Amen.
And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve in a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Item 4 is a public hearing for the proposed amended municipal budget for the 2025 fiscal year. First, we will hear a little bit about it, and then we will have public comment.
Sir, this is a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2025 Mount Pleasant budget pursuant to Section 6180 of the South Carolina Code of Laws. The proposed budget amendment is in the amount of $7,392,905.
Thank you very much. If you would like to speak on this, it does not count as your public comment. However, the 2.5-minute limit does. Is there anyone to speak in this public hearing? All right, there being none, I am required by procedure to sound the gavel to end the public hearing. This public hearing is closed. This moves us to item 5, approval of the minutes from the December 2nd meeting and the December 10 special town council meetings and the December 2024 financial statement. Do we have a motion, please? We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I believe what we're approving are just the 2 special meetings, are we not? Madam Clerk?
Yes.
We're not approving a council meeting on the 2nd or the 10th, so
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody
Right.
understands we don't have the council meeting from January on our agenda tonight because it was so long, a lot of verbiage, and I sympathize with our clerk from having
Right.
special meetings as well. So I
And-
just wanted to make sure that everybody understands we're not approving the January meeting.
Right. December 2nd and December 10 special council meetings, plural. Exactly. And that was the motion, I believe.
Yes.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The minutes are approved. Section 6 is public comment. If you'd like to make a public comment when your name is called, please come forward. And by ordinance, everyone has 2.5 minutes, please. Please state your name and address.
Thank you, Mayor. First speaker, Mike Van Horn. evening, members of council. Mike Vianhorn, Iron Bridge Drive. I'd like to revisit the order number 25008 from last month that council member Brownstein had proposed as far as the town to sit there and look at our readings and have them in 3 readings versus the 2. I think it would help for public transparency and accountability, and also give more folks public opportunity for input for any issues that arise in the town. The next thing I'd like to talk about is thank you for the recent inclusion of the various council meetings in the minutes that are online for residents to review. If we could possibly work on the audio, because when you're listening to those from your screen, from your TV at home, you cannot hear the audio. Like council members, you can hear quite well, but a mic such as this one or any of the individuals sitting on the side, you can barely hear them. There was even one meeting where there was 2 individuals standing here and one person was over here, you couldn't really hear him, but the person that was here, and that's maximizing your TV at the highest level of volume, so I don't know if that's something we can change. The next thing I have is on traffic. Back in September of 2013, the town made an ordinance as far as 13057, the chapter 77 as far as the texting while driving. I know the town is possibly working on some traffic issues this year, but I'd like to see that section C2, if we could sit there and eliminate the cell phones while folks are driving, to more or less champion a campaign that it's either hands-free or pay the fee. You know, because we have too many accidents where individuals are on their phone and just blindly not paying attention to traffic. The next section area that I'd like to talk about is, if we can, I would like to see council. We have various elections throughout, time frames, but if the town could actually host a candidate forum, so that way it gives all you folks and also the residents opportunity to meet the candidates that are coming up for election, whether it be our general election or the special election that's coming up on March 25th. So, thank you.
Michael Winter.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Henny. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Michael Winter, and I live at 1486 Indian Street. I also wanted to take a moment to address Ordinance 25008 that was addressed and discussed at last month's meeting. If I recall correctly, Mr. Brownstein proposed allowing amendments to be made during first reading for proposed town ordinances. The idea, as I understood it, is to give the public a clearer picture of what council will be voting on at the second reading and another chance to voice their opinions. While I appreciate the intent behind this change, I believe it could lead to rushed amendments made in the moment, only to be reconsidered or undone at the second reading. I think both council and the public would benefit from more time to reflect before any modifications are made to proposed ordinances. In addition, under this proposed system, amendments can still be made at the second reading, meaning the public still wouldn't have full clarity on what will actually be voted on when they provide their input. If the goal is to improve transparency and public engagement, I'd suggest that we consider moving to a 3-reading format if a change is to be made to our current system. The first reading would remain unchanged. No amendments, just an introduction of the issue. And then at the next month's meeting, the public could provide input before any changes are made. Then, at the second reading, council could introduce amendments after thoughtful consideration with a final unmodified vote taking place at the third reading. This process would allow for clearer decision-making and ensure that the public has a real opportunity to respond to what's actually being decided. I believe that this approach would streamline the process, avoid reactivity, and ultimately save time and provide more transparency. And even though I didn't disagree with his perspective and suggestions, it would also avoid situations like last month when Mr. Rambo suggested a new enforcement date for the tree ordinance kind of in the final hour. That would have been discussed at the second reading with a final vote coming up at the third reading. Thank you for your time.
Allison Hunt.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Allison Hunt, address 40 Patriots Point Road, Mount Pleasant. I am here in my role as Executive Director of Patriots Point Development Authority. The authority is in support of the development agreement that Patriots Point Development Authority is a part of for Patriots Annex, as well as the Patriots Annex plan development. The Patriots Annex project is incredibly important to Patriots Point and to our ability to maintain and repair the two historic warships that we have at the museum at Patriots Point. Also, the economic impact and benefit of the Patriots Annex development to the town of Mount Pleasant will be substantial. Our authority is supportive of all of the efforts of Patriots Annex to move forward. Thank you.
James Wilson.
Good evening. My name is James Wilson. I'm here on behalf of Patriots Annex LLC and here with Mr. Michael Bennett. I will respond to specific requests from Planning Committee when we get to our agenda item. As you know, at a high level, the concept here for Patriots Annex, which is just a small part of overall Patriots Point, is it's a pedestrian-oriented seaside village concept. And most importantly, as we've talked about at length, will be the new large public waterfront element here. And we think that this is a real attractive thing for Mount Pleasant, for visitors and locals alike. That waterfront park will ultimately connect over to the existing town waterfront park, the Ravenel Bridge. And we really think this is a place where, parents can bring their kids on the weekend. You can get a meal before or after a Battery game, something like that. At any rate, we look forward to working out the details of this and commencing construction later this year. And please call on us to answer questions and respond to requests that you have. Thank you.
David Quick.
Hello, Council. My name is David Quick. I live at 1502 Village Square. And I would like to continue the conversation a little bit about the undergrounding of power lines to help protect our trees along our right-of-ways. I was at the Finance Committee last week, and unfortunately, we have to speak before we hear what the Finance Committee talks about. I think the issue of the studies in the neighborhoods should not be conflated with the idea of undergrounding power lines along our right-of-ways, which is something that's enjoyed by the greater public. And the whole idea of, this is going to be really expensive for individual property owners, in the event of it being in a neighborhood. But we bring in $5 to $6 million in a franchise fee every year from our electric power. I know that there's also an issue with the other utilities such as cable and telephone. I think we should be able to work that out. I think it's worth it. Like I mentioned at the Finance Committee when I was here covering the town for the Post and Courier, the scenic highways were very important subject matter to council. They were very protective of talking about Mathis Ferry Road and McCants and Center Street and Long Point Road. I think there's something special about our roadways and the classic southern canopy over a roadway. It gives you a special feeling whether you're a pedestrian, someone in a car, or just someone looking at it. So I hope you will continue the conversation about undergrounding power lines. I'd also like to thank the town for allowing us to have a live stream today. We had 40 people attend an event where Homegrown National Parks talked about how we can make our communities more sustainable from an ecological and resilience standpoint. And I think there's a lot of momentum along that way, and I appreciate the town staff accommodating us and helping us with the technology. Thank you very much.
That's all I have, sir.
Is there anyone for public comment that did not have the opportunity to sign up who would like to speak? All right. There being none, that will close public comment. That is section 6. And we will move to agenda section 7, which is consent agenda items. Can we get a motion, please?
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, and this would be items A through F, which continue on to page 3. We have a motion and a second. We are in discussion.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, do have some questions about item F, which is the right-of-way planting situation with Mount Pleasant Waterworks. Let me pull it up real quick. Specifically, the last sentence of the ordinance that's stricken, it will be Mount Pleasant Waterworks standard procedure to level and smooth the area of excavation or disturbance and rake in contractor grade seed. I know that I see that we're striking it, and I guess my question is why? You know, is
Sure.
that still going to be the standard practice? I'd hate to hear somebody's yard's torn up and Waterworks isn't going to do anything about it because it's not their standard procedure to do so. And so just had a question about why that sentence in particular is stricken.
I can take a layman's guess, but is there somebody that is better at it, better informed, or
Do we have the actual ordinance that can be shown?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
25006.
it's not on. We don't have it for the screen.
No,
No.
It's on the last page.
All right.
I just want to make sure we're
Sure.
not making a
No.
change that's going to affect somebody down the road. I
Right.
don't think that's the intent of the ordinance,
Right.
but just piqued my attention.
the
that we're taking
reason
that out.
for Mount Pleasant Waterworks is they are getting away from the standard contractor way of doing it in a way that's not in keeping with like what the 40 people here were, and you're here today listening to so that they can do pollinator gardens, they can do just more resilient type landscape. And so that's the intent of that. Now, it hasn't been put to practice, so it's anybody's guess, like it always is when we pass an ordinance. But it does not mean that they will leave something unfinished or something like that. If that answers that question.
That does make sense. I'm just wondering if we could pass it with that sentence still in it and get the same result and not have any ambiguity down the road.
This is a procedural issue. We could always pass it tonight and come back and amend that one, but it is part of the whole consent agenda
Yes, sir.
in this motion.
Correct, sir. That is the motion. The options are to move forward and deal with it, clarification at another time to satisfy any council members, or remove it from this vote,
Right.
and answer any questions in the interim and respond next month. So those are the two options.
What would you prefer?
I have a question
Sure.
as well on that. I guess I've had that happen in my front yard where a pipe burst and they've got to dig up the whole front yard. And then is this stating that they're just going to put dirt down and then call it a day? Or, I mean, because they put sod on mine, I think they should have to put the same sod at which your grass is. So are we saying that they're leaving it that way just so people can put whatever they choose? Or I think they should have to replace it to what it was as far as grass is concerned. If you've got trees on the easement, then it's trees. That's on you, but grass should be replaced. So I would agree with Mr. Brownstein if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, I just sort of think you could get the same result without striking that sentence. It still gives landowners the option of pursuing the pollinator garden.
Can we amend? You can amend
I'll
it.
amend my
Yeah.
second to remove item F, so we can talk about it separately. So we can just vote on A through E.
Okay.
Howard, will you amend your?
I'll remove my initial motion then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remove the F, right?
Withdraw.
Withdraw
No,
F.
withdrawing
Withdraw
that.
that motion and move that we do everything in the consent agenda except item F.
A through
Okay,
E.
and I second that.
Okay, so that's A through E. We have a second. So let's have discussion on A through E first. How about that? All right. Any discussion on items A through E? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. So that leaves item F. Procedurally, do we take it because it was on the consent agenda? And now I'm not sure exactly. It's kind of homeless.
It
I
can
move
be
to
done
defer.
either way, but
Defer.
either can be done either way, but I
Okay.
think general best practice is to leave it where it is and discuss it now on the agenda so the public is aware
Sounds good.
where it is.
All right, so you
I
have,
move to defer this back to its committee to discuss the appropriate language for this.
refer to committee, okay? And we have a second. All right, we're in discussion.
I was just gonna say, Mr. Brownstein, I don't read it that way, and I do remember this discussion at MPW. The whole purpose of this and the highlighted portion or the underlined portion being added is that essentially what would happen in the past is if they made a repair, you're not supposed to do anything but grass or gravel or something could be easily torn up. They made a repair, they're automatically going to level it and put grass. But if you put a pollinator garden or native friendly stuff there, they're not going to automatically replace your pollinator garden or just automatically put grass. So they'll work with the homeowners as they would automatically put the grass, but that's not a requirement anymore that they do that if that's the homeowner's wish, basically, and it's upon their request.
Yeah, I totally get it and totally support it. I don't like the ambiguity that they're taking it. Their standard procedure, I think, should be to leave it as it was. But if you're a landowner who wants to do the pollinator garden or rain garden, you should have that option as well. And I don't want
And that's the intent.
anything to be misconstrued down the line where Waterworks will say that's not our job anymore.
Okay. Well, we have a motion to refer it to committee. We can clear that up or make the language more clear. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Is this being referred to water supply or to PLJ?
You can do either, sir, but I would put it on probably water supply, but if you'd rather PJL, that's fine as well.
Water supply's fine.
Sure, since it's a waterworks related thing. Okay. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good job. This moves us to item 8, which is planning.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So you have 2 new business items under planning. I'm going to combine them as I talk about them, but they'll need to be 2 separate votes. One for the amendment to the development agreement, and that's to extend it for 5 years. The other is to adopt a plan development district ordinance. You did see this last month. It came to you as a discussion only. It went back to the committee for further discussion and for town council's input from that discussion. So again, the request for the PD, and I could go into as much detail or as little as you would like. I know that you've heard a lot of this before, but the PD would carry over the same entitlements and land uses as the Waterfront Gateway with some of those exceptions that we talked about on this chart, and they're asking for a few differences. And that's here. So the current Waterfront Gateway, you're required to do the 160 inches per acre. They've proposed the 80 per acre. The Patriots Point Road buffer, a 5-foot reduction in that. The minimum green space is proposed to be the same. The waterfront public walkways, the pedestrian connections, those are all proposed to be the same. And then the other deviation is the design for the stucco and the flat roofs, and then that critical line buffer. Same average, but the minimum they wish to have 15 feet instead of 20 feet. So that came to you all and to the committee with a planning commission recommendation. And the planning commission recommendations addressed the density. Right now under Waterfront Gateway, they are approved for 130 units total. That's 12 units an acre. The planning commission recommended 4 units an acre and then an additional 4 if those were attainable. So 4 market, 4 attainable. That's what came from the planning commission. They also talked about maximizing the boardwalk and the pedestrian areas, and then they recommended the change of the stucco. It should be a secondary and not a primary material. And then the last one was a 40% tree canopy cover. And then it comes to you tonight after planning committee revisited it, talked about it at the last committee meeting. It now comes to you with additional conditions, and that is to, if you're going to show 14% open space instead of the minimum 10, they want that memorialized. So entire development should have a minimum of 14% open space. They also recommended that the residential units be a total of 80 across the board. That comes out to about 2.5 units per acre. In the planning world, you would round that down, so it's 2 units an acre. No flat roofs allowed. And then the committee recommended that tree reduction be 120 inches per acre. So they had originally recommended a proposed 80. They're required to do 160, and the compromise from committee was 120. And then last is the developer talked about these cottages in this parcel 2, and so it's basically this area here, that those are all going to be not over 35 feet, but they're allowed for 50 feet right now under the approved height map. So the last condition was that if you're doing 35 feet, let's make it 35 feet. And so that was the last condition. So this comes before you. First, the development agreement with a 5-year extension, and then the plan development with these conditions attached to it. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know the developer's here as well. So.
And let me remind everybody, this is first reading. We can't make any amendments. And so any questions should be about what is in here for first reading tonight. We all get it. There's probably things we would probably change at second reading, or maybe not, but it's first reading.
So,
yes, sir.
So these recommendations have not been added yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so if we break it down simple, they have what entitled rights right now without it going to a PD, and a PD gives us, or staff, more control, more more insight into actually what's going to be developed. Is that correct?
Yeah, the PD, so the Waterfront Gateway says minimum 10% open space. What the PD says is it memorializes additional. So if they say they're going to do 14 or 15% open space, the PD makes that specific. Okay, you say you're going to do 14%, let's memorialize it in this PD ordinance. Under the current Waterfront Gateway, they have some minimums and maximums, and when they got approved, they had to do an impact assessment. That's primarily for transportation. And they're not proposing to change those minimums and maximums. And so office space, a maximum of 170,000 square feet overall. Some mixed use buildings and residential uses with a maximum of 130 multifamily units. That's not proposed to change. The hotels, I think they've talked about 2 hotels and then a resort hotel, but maximum 500 rooms. That's under the current zoning, and that's under the proposed. The conference center, and then structured and surface parking. Total spaces provided 1,730. That's not proposed to change. And then the open space minimum 10%. That's not proposed to change. And so all of those maximum and minimum thresholds are carried over. But what the PD does is allow you to memorialize additional things, like the additional open space, like if you want to lower the height, because right now it's governed by an approved height map. So if you want to lower the height,
is that 85 feet?
So the height it's a step back height, and that was approved in 2019 when it was rezoned. And that's what the height is. So along the water,
so they can walk out of here today and say, I'm pulling this PD, and this is what we're doing. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. They would be entitled to, yes.
They're entitled to that.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are you finished?
Yes. Sir.
Okay. Yes.
So I think the way that I would explain it for the public and is that what the PD gives us is an opportunity to memorialize the things that we as a town want reflected in this. I think Mr. Rambo did an excellent job putting together what the his motion, sort of fixing in it the 14%, because what the proposal says is 14% open space. So let's fix that, because if we don't fix that, it could drop down to 10% in some later iteration of this project. The same thing with the proposal says 80 units of development. Well, then let's fix it at 80 units, because if we don't fix it at 80 units, it could change in another iteration and go back up to the maximum. So I think this is so what we have suggested for second reading, I guess we have to amend this on second reading, is that we put into the PD the limitations that we want, including lowering the height on that one parcel that's in front of the Grand Lawn, so that, which is what they say they're going to do, is 35 feet, and just memorialize it in that sense. I mean, I said this before. I think Michael Bennett does beautiful work. They've put together some beautiful projects, and I think his intent for the town of Mount Pleasant is to create a wonderful amenity for our community. But I think that we should memorialize as much of that beauty as possible into a PD. So I think it's a positive thing for our community to move to a PD.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brownstein.
Yes, I'm wondering though if reducing the homes per acre from 12 to 2, does that not provide a disincentive for him to enter into a PD with us? In other words, if he could pull this at any time and build 12 units per acre, and so I'm wondering if maybe there's more of a happy medium out there that would incentivize him to go through this PD process. And not just develop under the straight zoning.
I was just going to say that my microphone's not working. What committee decided to do was we took his suggestions and wanted to memorialize them. So these are things that they came to us saying they wanted to do. So we basically want to keep them at their word of what we would actually be getting. I mean, other developers, we've said we want specifics, so they came with us with specifics, and we just want to memorialize them so that we know if we're going to have a PD that this is what we're going to get. Because in the past we've had PDs, and you see, we get burned because we end up a lot of times with things that weren't what we thought we were going to get. So it's just a way to memorialize what they've actually come to us with, those number of units.
We don't have a motion. No, we don't have a motion yet, do we?
We don't have a motion.
No, this is just, okay, yes.
Just to respond to a couple of you guys, and I'm going to give Mr. Wilson you a chance to, is that so one of the benefits of a PD is that it is a negotiation. So there are things that we would like to see, I think, as a planning committee, and that's what we memorialized. But even within that suggestions, what's not listed are the things that they had already proposed to change, like some of the setbacks and distances, and there were some other things in there that we were saying, okay, yeah, sure, that gives them more flexibility through this new PD than it does the current WGC zoning. The tree requirement, if they stay with the WGC zoning, is 160. We compromise at 120. So I think, to me, it really, a PD is really just a negotiation. Now, the hard part of a negotiation is that we're a public body, so we have to do this in public, and there's 8 of us, and so we all 8 have to agree, and we can. And y'all are right. I mean, the developer would have to agree to these things, and if we can't come to an agreement, then it will just stay as Waterfront Gateway. And so with that, I would like to, Mr. Wilson, if you would like to just kind of give some feedback from planning committee suggestions on kind of our discussion from last week, and I know y'all went back and talked about it, so what y'all are thinking.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Appreciate the chance to respond. We've had some very good, thorough discussions, I think, with Council last month and with Planning Committee 2 times, and we think it's been a good process as it should be. So I think the most important thing to keep in mind, well, first of all, a PD is a zoning district, just like you have many different zoning districts in the town of Mount Pleasant, right? You have area-wide business, WGC is what we currently are. It sets those rules. This is a 30-acre project that will take time to develop. We're eager to get busy on the first part and get busy on the waterfront and the first hotel, as you know. But it'll take time. And so the current conceptual plan that we have, that we need to preserve some flexibility in that. Everything is not going to be built, later this year. So what we've shown you is a current plan, but there's got to be some flexibility, meaning, depending on the market, there may be less office or there may be more office. And if you change that, you have to change other things because you've got to keep that traffic count from going up, right? So I'm telling you things that you know, but that's important to keep track of the fact that we can't just pin down every item of a large development and lock it in at once. So understanding that concept, of the 5 things that the planning committee requested to change to the PD, we are glad to strike the provision. Oh, that's a great idea.
I think my microphone.
Can you hear me okay? So, I'll go in the order that they are here. So the open space requirement. So WGC has a 10% open space requirement. We proposed, of course, just to carry that over into the PD. You all have requested to increase that requirement. And our current plan shows 14%. We 100% expect to hit 14%, but we would propose changing that 10 to 12, and here's why. We don't know some things that'll happen. For instance, we may have to build a sewer pump station on this 30 acres. If we need to do that, that consumes some more space. That space that would be trees would be open space. There's just a lot of movement in this, and so we hear you. We want to increase that. All day long, we think we can still hit 14%, but it's important to us to maintain flexibility with a conceptual plan is conceptual. It evolves. The second point, the number of residential units. So what we would propose is not going from 12 to 2 units per acre, but taking the limit from 12 down to 8 units per acre, which is a 1/3 reduction of what's currently allowed. But keep this in mind. Within Patriots Point is about 460 acres right now. The only part of Patriots Point property right now that currently under your zoning allows residential use is this 30 acre piece. So keep that in mind. You're actually talking about how many units residential units you could see out here on close to 500 acres. This would be, if we went to 8 units per acre, that is very low. And the only folks who can change that are you, town council. In other words, if somebody wants to do more residential, it's only with your approval. No flat roofs. We're happy to strike the provision in the PD that would allow for flat roofs. Fine, strike. Yes, sir.
I just have a question on flat roof.
Yeah.
You're not saying no flat. Sometimes you got to put HVAC units. Are you saying no flat roof at all, or is that?
Good point, Mr. Alfone. It would be just sticking with the norm, which is you can have sort of like a partial gable and then flat behind that where you hide the equipment. So yes, that would still be allowed.
Okay.
We had just put in the PD sort of a.
Yeah. Okay. I'm down. So like I don't know how anybody's going to do. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Good question. The number of trees per acre, planning committee requested that what we had put in the PD at 80 caliper inches per acre go up to 120, which is the midpoint between 80 and 160. That is completely acceptable to us. And as we talked about last time, part of what's going on here is we want to be able to have a grand lawn, right? We want to be able to have real natural open space. And so we're trying to make all these things fit. But we think that's a good solution on that point. And then lastly, the fifth point is not on that shown here. I guess at the bottom it is. The 35 feet, assuming that what I've described works for council, we're happy to bring that central area between the grand lawn and the waterfront from 50 feet down to 35 feet and make that change. So if these revisions are acceptable to council, we would be glad to go back and revise our application so when it comes back next time, you have a revised application making these changes that you can vote on for final reading.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wood.
So, to clarify, oh my God. The current design proposed, I believe, only had like 130 units of housing. Is that correct? I think.
I don't know what is on when we talk about the proposed. I think what we're talking about what's in the impact assessment.
Right. I think in the proposed design, like if you look at the rendering, the concept, I think there was only 130 units. Is that correct?
It wasn't specifically called out in the conceptual plan or the rendering, but the entitlements is maxed out at 130 units.
So this 8 units per acre, we're talking 30 acres. That's 200.
Units per acre.
No, so but if we do 8 units per acre, he's proposing 8 units per acre.
Right.
But I thought the Waterfront Gateway was 12 units per acre, so 12 times 30, right? 360 units per acre. So where's the 130 number coming?
130 is what they said they were the max that they would do in their impact assessment. So that's all that's accounted for in the traffic study. You're right.
Okay, so 130 is in the impact assessment, but if we were to go to 8 units per acre, that's 8 times 30, that's 240 units. That's significantly more units than you have in your impact assessment. How does that work?
Sure. This goes to the point I was trying to make at the beginning that you can so the impact assessment primarily focused on traffic. If you increase one item, for example, if you increase office, you've got to move other things down to keep the right to stay in balance with traffic. And Mr. Morrison can speak to this more eloquently than I can, but the concept is that you don't know exactly the number of square feet of this or units of that, how a development is going to work out over time. But we know that the total traffic needs to be limited. So you may reduce office and increase residential a little bit. Does that?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
Thanks.
But that was one of our concerns, though, was the increase in residential in that area, which is why we were looking at the 130 number, not the 12 units per acre, 130 in the impact assessment. So would this mean, Ms. Reed, would this mean they would have to redo the impact assessment if they were to increase the number of residential units?
Well, it depends. If a PD is adopted with a number, and they're able to account for those traffic counts, then no. But like Mr. Wilson was saying, if they go straight Waterfront Gateway and they pull this, they go under the current zoning, and they decide to keep all of the square footage and the threshold of what they have now, but they want to increase residential units, then they would have to come back in and do another impact assessment because they've exceeded their threshold of traffic counts.
I see, but you could lower office and increase, but you could just massage the things and get
Yeah,
to.
but that's not a 1-for-1, and that there's a formula that goes into that that Brad can speak to. But it's not you take away 10,000 square foot of commercial and you can add a residential unit, and I don't know what those numbers are, but those are. So if they were going to exceed that, they would have to come back and do another impact assessment. It would have to get approved by this body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's just something for the council to consider is 240 units on that land.
Right. We don't have a motion at the current.
Or they could do 360, right? Just
Well, or yes, if they were, or they could do 360 by rights under their current zoning.
we're talking. This is probably the first in 30-something years I've seen this kind of negotiation. This is kind of beautiful. So thank you for that. This is really awesome. So, what is your threshold in which you're just walking? If I want to ask that. I mean, if we're negotiating, let's negotiate. I'm just like, when are we walking here and just doing the old thing? I mean, that's the question, right? I mean, that's the question.
It is, Mr. Shagma. We are eager to. We want to work with council, work with the town to make this the best development possible. I don't know what I can tell you right now. I know. What I tell you right now is that both we and the PPDA, who remember is the landowner, because they have to be on board also. We have talked, and we are all on board with reducing the total allowed from 12 units per acre down to 8 units per acre. No matter what, we've got to stay within the traffic limitations. And then I would just remind you that remember, this is the only 30 acres out there of this 400 city acres that currently allows residential in this height. But please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that is true. Okay, thank you.
You have a question?
I just have for Michelle.
Oh, okay. Ms. Reed?
Do we know how much residential we have out in that area already? The condos and apartments and everything out at Patriots Point?
Well, it's
With
not
But
Patriots
it's, but
Point.
you know, in that area.
right,
Well,
not
it's
at
Ferry
Patriots
Wharf,
Point, but
it's
you're
not
talking about
Patriots
Ferry
Point.
Wharf.
Yeah, just
you
in that
can-
general
Ferry
vicinity.
Wharf, there's probably 260 or 70 in one. And then you've got the tides over there.
Yeah, the Renaissance, the Tides.
yeah.
What are they calling the brand new one that just opened at the corner?
The
of Harry
Legacy.
Hallman and
I think it's Legacy.
Yeah, Legacy.
I think that's
It's a few hundred.
yeah. Oh yeah, at least.
And I apologize. What the 460 acres I'm talking about is the Patriots Point
Patriots
Right.
Development
Right.
Authority property. I apologize if that wasn't clear. Sorry.
No, that is.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we want to give Mikey a chance to come up here and address it with us. But I want to make sure I understood this. I was trying to write it as fast as possible. So 14% of open space requirement and down to 12. All right.
10% requirement. We think we'll have 14%. We're willing to agree to 12% to give us a little wiggle room in case we got to do some things that we don't know right now.
Right.
That's
Okay.
really what it is. The
All right.
requirement's only 10%.
So, and then secondly, I had residential from 12 to 8 units per acre.
That's what we're recommending.
Okay. No flat roofs allowed.
I think you need them in areas like Mr. Icofano mentioned that you'd still have to put a mansard roof on there, but you got to put your air conditioning unit somewhere.
Okay. I've had here also number of trees reduced to 120. Reduced to 120 from 160.
Yes. Yes.
Is that accurate? And then 50 feet to 35 feet in height for the height.
That's in the area in front of the Grand Lawn toward the waterfront, which we're calling our little seaside pedestrian village.
Okay. Well, I don't have any.
You know, we
issues
would rather not give that up,
Yeah.
council member, but we're willing to. That's what we think we're going to build right now.
Yeah.
And if I could start construction tomorrow, that's what I would build.
Sure.
And I would remind the council that the zoning on each side of me all is 80 feet, all the way from next to me, all the way past the Renaissance, past Joe Rice, past Ferry Wharf, all the way down is 80 feet. And on the other side of me is 80 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all may have forgotten it, but GM, y'all got that to be reduced to 50 feet several years ago on that waterfront, which we agreed to, and then 65 and then 80.
So what I was saying was
But
basically
we're willing
accurate.
to go down to 35 on
Yeah.
that section.
So what I was saying was basically accurate.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve that.
We can't at this reading.
We can't.
We can approve.
For the first reading.
We can,
For items 1 and 2? A1
Yes,
and
sir.
2, both?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the motion is to approve items A1 and 2.
John.
Mr. Icofano. And of course, first reading, we cannot make any amendments. Yes.
Would it
Do
be
we
all-
have any questions for them? Because that's an
No, I
awkward
think-
place to be standing. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Mikey's been in awkward places before. Come on, Mikey.
if I put this on my committee in between now and next reading.
Oh, of course.
Yes, I would like to place this on planning committee for in between, just for a deeper discussion of the proposal. Now that we've had an opportunity to hear from the developer
Sure.
of what their bottom line is, I would like to have a discussion of that at committee. No, we can't amend.
no.
We can't amend it.
Somebody had their hand up. Ms. Chapman, yes, sir.
I want to let the council know why I objected to the height, even though the developer is agreeing that that's something they could accept. Because I had the same question that Mr. Icofano did about going up with HVAC. And, 35 feet is not real high for residential. And since this is on a waterfront, you've got to get those HVAC units in the air. And I don't know what that takes but I'm concerned that the 35 feet is a nice want to, but we already have a real discussion that was had a number of years ago that allowed the 50 feet. And the 50 feet is good. 35 is obviously better, but I'm concerned that those HVAC units with the mansard roof might be 40 feet. It might be 42 feet. And what do we do then? I think that we had a lot of discussions several years ago about 80, 65, I think it was 65.
80, 65, and 50. I remember it well.
And the 50 was, we thought that was great. We thought that was great. And now we're saying, oh no, since you're going to have this right here, and I like the view to the water, I like that a lot. But I don't think the HVAC units on those 35 feet are going to be at that height. I think they're going to be a little bit more. So why not just leave what we have a major discussion on a few years ago and let it go to leave it at that and move forward. And obviously we're going to discuss this again at committee.
Yeah.
But that was my rationale for my not voting for that 35 feet.
Okay. Ms. Whitley.
We just heard from the developer who said he was willing to limit himself to 35 feet in parcel number 2. So I feel comfortable moving forward with that.
Yes, sir. You can come back up.
Mr. Councilman Chapman, thank you for saying that. What happens when you come up here for 5 years? You get beat down and you just kind of, at some point, I do worry about 35 feet because I worry about the same things. And sometimes the building is prettier with a nice pitch on the roof or something. So I don't know if we should say a minimum of 3 floors or 35 feet, whichever is higher, because sometimes to do a 3-story building, you're going to need a little more than 35 if you want to put a nice roof on it. So we're going to design the thing the right way, and tying our hands to 35. At some point we get tired of coming here and asking, and we just kind of accept. But I think there's no question everything you said is accurate. We got beat down from 80 down to 50, and we accepted that, and so this is a little bit. But we're trying to be team players with the team. But it would be bad if we all would have liked it to have been 42 feet, yet we can't do it because I've agreed to 35 feet tonight. So I do appreciate and would like to keep it 50 feet. It's not going to make me want to build a bigger building.
We're getting a little off track here. We're still on first reading. All of this can be at committee and second reading.
Thank you.
So let's unless anyone has an objection, we have, yes, sir.
I do just want to correct one thing, Mr. Chapman, is that when that height map was voted on, me and you, Laura, most of us were not actually on council at that time, so we did not discuss it. I remember some of the council candidates, I was sitting in this room when that was discussed. So just wanted to correct that. And then also, as far as memorializing things, I remember a significant part of that discussion when that height map was first approved is that plan that was shown to us showed a public amphitheater. And that was a significant part of discussion about how great that was going to be. And that's not there anymore. So if you don't memorialize things, sometimes they don't happen. So.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion to approve items A1 and A2 having to do with the Patriots Annex portion of Patriots Point. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. This will also be on, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. DeMore.
Sorry, sir. First reading of ordinance numbers 25009 and 25010.
This will also be on the committee agenda for planning, and we will also have, I'm sure, lively discussion at second reading. Thank you very much. Old business, there is no planning old business. 9 is committee actions finance, approval of accepting a police vehicle donation. Mr. Rambo?
Yes, so the town of Mount Pleasant has been awarded a proposed donation of a Dodge
of a Dodge.
You've been reading too much news.
So I've been on X too much. A donation of a Dodge Police Charger in the amount of $36,648 from the Galliana Automotive Group. As such, I move that council accept this donation.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 10 on the next page, council new business, approval of blessing of the fleet beneficiaries.
I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Austin, do you have those beneficiaries?
Good evening, Council. Due to the fact that I'm new and haven't been to a blessing of the fleet yet, I'm going to ask Nicole Harvey, our Special Events Division Chief, to come up and give you all the information.
Thank you very much.
Looks like we got another GQ up with us now. Eric, you got to catch up.
He can only wear red and black because it's not football season. So you all have information in front of you. I think you do this every year. We meet with the Magwood family, of course, who started this festival decades ago, and we formalized the process a while back. We now go through an application process. We're very excited to have 2 new, never applied before, beneficiaries to recommend this year. So we have the Mount Pleasant Rotary Club and Meow Dog Animal Rescue, which is run out of the Lucy Beckham High School. If you don't know anything about them, you should go visit them. They're amazing, and they've been to a lot of our events, and they both are very excited to help us.
Thank
all
you.
of our volunteers.
I believe also there's a process where we come back with those numbers and we see who's getting what. But this is
We
just
will
who
present the check usually, yes, in
Right.
June.
Right. Thank you.
Just one thing.
Yes, sir.
Well, two things. It is wonderful at Lucy Beckham, unless your son is on there and brings dogs home all the time. But 2, I think congratulations is also in order when it comes to the statue of Mr. Magwood as well.
Yes.
You guys
we
hit your
have
number, right?
installation for that. So we'll have information coming to you all very soon about the installation, and that we'll do an unveiling, of course.
Wonderful.
In April.
All right. Can we get a motion on item A1, please?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Item 2 is
Move to approve.
Second.
all right. We have a motion and a second. And just for those who might be concerned, this is not new right away. This is already existing right away. It's just a matter of whose name it's in. And this probably should have been done years ago, as I understand.
Should have, sir. We are erasing a liability.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
First reading ordinance number 25011.
Item 3, resolution authorizing a law enforcement assistance and support agreement between the Irmo Police and Mount Pleasant Police. This
Motion
is a
approved.
standard MOU. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Resolution 25021.
And item 4, item B1 is final reading of the ordinance to amend the budget for the town. This is our mid-year budget correction.
Move to approve.
Second.
There are 2 amendments. We could discuss real quick.
Yes, all right.
So you have the original. This is the original. The 2 amendments, if I can get this to work. No, too fast.
Can't do that yet.
The first one is to reduce the amount for the farmers market, the north end, from 40 down to 25,000. We just got some additional estimates in, so this is a more realistic number.
Okay.
And then the second is for the additional costs related to the special election next month. We currently have $20,000 in the budget, but the county has sent us an itemized estimate of just under 82,000. So therefore, additional budget of 61,938.
Move to amend with these recommendations.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion to, this is the amendment itself.
Correct.
Yes, the amendment itself. And a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please. Yep.
I'm sorry tonight, but And we don't have early voting in Mount Pleasant. Do we have early voting? I heard we did. They did. They did open it. Oh, okay. Somebody called me and said we didn't have it. Okay, that's good news. Slot cash. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The item is amended. Just a second. All right, that carried. All right. Any discussion on the motion as amended? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we have an amended budget. That completes that business. Item 11 is to adjourn. If there's no further business, this council stands adjourned. Right at 7.